Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Wye River Upper School speaker series. It's the very first one of the 2022-2023 school year. Very exciting.
Very.
Very, very exciting. Tonight we have joining us Dr. Stephanie Akoumany, and she is the founder and CEO of Bloom Wellness Lab. She also hosts two wellness and leadership podcasts. One is called Blooming is a Habit, and the other one is Agility in Bloom. Dr. Akoumany is an optimal performance consultant, interpersonal relationships expert, a speaker, researcher, educator, world schooling mom. She's also a marathoner and a yogi. She helps schools, businesses, nonprofits, universities, and government offices and institutions cultivate cultures that embrace diversity, equity, inclusion, resilience, and holistic wellness. And these are all things that we feel are very, very important, vital to our own school culture at Wye River Upper School. And we are just so thrilled that she is here joining us tonight. Thank you all for coming. And please, if you have questions, go ahead and type them in the chat and I will keep track of them. Around 7:15, we'll stop so that Stephanie can answer any questions that you might have. Okay.
Sounds
I think
great.
that's all the housekeeping. I'll turn it over to you, Stephanie.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Katie and Stephanie. And thank you to everyone that's here tonight. I know our labs can be quite busy, and the fact that you're here means a lot. And for anybody that might be watching a recording of this later, if that will be available, thank you for joining whenever you do. This is a true honor. I love doing this. I could do it for 24 hours straight or more. It just talking about what does it mean to be human is the goal of what I'm doing, and not what does it mean, but what can it mean, right? I had to even catch myself on that and I think this is the perfect conversation for that, because when we ask ourselves, what can it mean? We open up the conversation even more. Because we realize if we say, what does it mean to be human? We're putting we're looking for a very one statement answer. And that's not what humanity is. And I think that the work of diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and belonging, as many of you may have seen, they've added a J and a B, the field. And I think it's great because it opens the conversation even more about what can it mean to be human? What is diversity? What can inclusion look like? What can equity, justice, and belonging look like? So I really thank you all so much for being here. And so I just want to start with this conversation of neurodiversity and the importance of it through diversity. And the first step is we're talking about parenting styles. So just remembering that you matter as a parent. And if you're a parent or a guardian, you matter. You're a leader. You're a person that's a wayfinder. You help your team, in this case, really make their way through the world. And even when it feels like they're not listening, they are listening. And they're listening not only to the words you say, but I'd say even more to your body language and to your actions. And so this doesn't mean that you should start judging yourself, because you might know that sometimes your body language isn't what you would really want, right? Maybe you're coming back home from work or you're at work and you're trying to balance life. And even if you don't go to a physical location, it's still, there's so much to do. I know that as a person who works remotely for my business and being a homeschooling mom, I'm balancing the home, even with a very supportive husband. And some people don't have partners, right? And sometimes my husband isn't able to support me in a 50-50 way, because just the way that life is set up, but he tries his best, right? So what I'm saying with all this is, no matter what your situation is, I definitely understand. And I found myself lucky to balance many different roles of being in office culture, outside of it, as a parent myself, as an educator, a researcher, and I call myself an athlete and explorer, because parenthood is very complex. Not only are you trying to take care of yourself, and figure out how your brain works, but you're also trying to find out what are the learning styles of your child. So let's just please remember that you matter and just take time to give yourself grace, because you're working hard to figure it out. And that's why you're here today. The first question you should ask yourself is, who are you and who do you want to be? And while you're doing this, something that I love these two quotes because they're so helpful. It says this because we're really trying to like create a blueprint for the future. And thank you so much, Katie, for helping me to get that blog post up. Because if you go to Y River's website for the speaker series, you can find a great book. Well, look, I was speaking as a third person, but I do think it's great. And I don't say that in an arrogant way, but I really had to step outside of myself to write that blog post. And I said it's great because I do feel it's great. And I'll say that because we should all toot our own horn once in a while and know that when we put our best foot forward, we'll get great results. So yeah, but I was going to say that I hope that it's a valuable resource to you. And I will say, I think it's really great because I mapped out some key guidelines to help us to really think through how perfectionism is not the goal here when being a parent of a neurodiverse child and a neurodivergent child, or you yourself might be neurodivergent. And I really want to take the wild statement that in some ways we're all neurodivergent. Now, let me be clear. Yes, all of us are not diagnosed, and this is not to take away from the unique needs that neurodivergent people experience. Don't get me wrong. And I myself am neurodivergent. I'll give a little background. For instance, I had a very hard time as a teenager taking classes, not taking classes, but taking tests in high school. I went to an independent school in Maryland called the Bryn Mawr School for Girls, and it was great. It had great teachers. It was wonderful. But as I got to upper school, like Y River, and you're looking for the greatest school, I think Y River is a great one. We realized that I really understood the material. I studied hard, I worked hard, but when it got time to take the test, it was very hard for me to finish in time. And it wasn't an issue of not working hard. It wasn't an issue of not understanding material. My brain was thinking so expansively about all the possible options. Just like when I was writing this blog post, Katie was very patient with me. I was trying to include like the whole like research, about neurodiversity. I was like, oh, I need to really slow down and just put what I can, because I'm not writing a book right here. I'm writing an article. So I had to really take stock and kind of laugh at myself in a positive way, because I was grateful that it took me a while to write it, because it reminded me of the importance of this talk and what I went through in high school. And my parents, they had to seek out the school psychologist. And it was great because my school psychologist was not labeling me in any way. And labels can be very helpful as long as you're being open about them. So they said, okay, let's get her tested. And so I went to take these tests. It's a vague memory now. And they couldn't really come up with a diagnosis for me, but they just said that I had a learning difference. And they could tell that my mind was thinking about things differently. So I was very lucky that even though I didn't have a diagnosis, they offered me extra time to take tests. And because I had that documentation, I was able to use that when I went to college as well to receive extra time on tests. And this made, I just got chills. It made a world of difference in my life because I felt that I was understood. I felt that the label of learning difference didn't bother me because everybody was so understanding and positive about it. And also I knew that I was offered support. Every team will feel differently about that. And every team will feel different about staying after class longer. Or if you have a really great teacher every teacher's great, but a teacher can work with you to say, okay, what my teachers did they said, okay, at the end of class, you'll stop if you want to. And you can keep going, so that I wouldn't have to stand out to the rest of my peers as clearly, oh, she gets extra time. What's wrong with her? Or why does she get that special privilege? When clearly, like, the time in our neurotypical world, right? The test is timed because that's the only way to tell if you did a good job. Not true. And so I say all this because as parents of neurodivergent children, we have to remember that the way that we test them at home, I'm hesitant to say should, but I say it in a nice way, but I would say it would be nice if you consider, how can you move beyond the test? How can you move beyond the time while still keeping some time boundaries that are more fluid? So I'll go to this. I wanted to share that story because I think it's very representative of some of the needs that people will need, but recognizing that everybody thinks differently. And that's what I meant about that neurodivergent part, that everybody is. And I don't mean it to stick hard and fast to these labels. My point is that everybody's brain is different. Everybody's learning style is different. And if we can think about how can we create an environment, there's something called universal design, where we can create environments in school and at home that asks the student, what do they need? They might not know all the way, but they might know something. They probably do. So anyway, let me get to the slides because I could just go on this forever. So we're here creating a blueprint for our lives. This is the start of what you're doing, creating a new opportunity for you and your family, hopefully with Wye River. If not, I hope you find a great school. But from what I've seen, Wye River would be a great place. And I would definitely send my child if she was in high school, but she's not. She's 6. But the leadership there, they understand that you're visualizing your future. This is why I put this here. And it says, when visualizing your future, the best way to predict your future is to create it, not from the known, but the unknown. And as a parent of a neurodivergent child, you probably feel like this all the time, but you might feel like you're trying to go upstream instead of downstream and just flow with the river. Because flowing can feel like being unproductive. It can feel like not being efficient. And when matched with the expectations that you yourself may have with work life, or helping another older family member, or helping another close friend, like all the things that happen when we're adults that you can never expect always. How can you think about this unknown of your child's growth, whether they were labeled or they themselves classify themselves as neurodivergent or not? Because you have a team who's growing and changing, and it's good to ask them where they are. And then the last quote, it says, when you get uncomfortable in the face of the unknown, well, that's where the magic happens. Now you might be like, magic, tantrums, like fidgeting, discomfort, fear and anxiety. How is this magical? Well, it's development. It's like, let's think about growing pains. Let's think about working out at the gym. And I love this metaphor, working out at the gym, because here, a little muscle has to tear in order for it to grow. But the goal is that it doesn't tear too much where it rips and breaks, right? And so finding this like delicate balance of how much do I push myself? How much do I push my child? And knowing that only you can do the inner work. Only you can do the emotional work that it takes to calm down, breathe, and figure out who you are. I'm going to show a really quick video about, this is me and my daughter, who really inspired me to create Bloom Wellness Lab, and then we'll keep it moving. Hope I can expand it. I'm from Baltimore. I showed my stomping grounds. This is where I grew up.
My name is Dr. Stephanie Akoumany, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Bloom Wellness Lab. Here, life is a lab where you learn, grow, and play. You figure out who you want to be. Who are you? Not just your name, not just your profession, but who are you and who do you want to be? Here, we're ready to match you with the best coaches from around the world to figure out how to follow your passion, understand who you are inside, to meditate, practice some yoga, to dance, to figure out what your profession should be, what your business should be, and just how you live the best life. Here, we're going to make blooming a habit. Follow us on Instagram, on our website, on Facebook, and figure out who you are and what you want to do with your life to make blooming a habit. Welcome to the lab.
And I'll get back to the video. So the reason I showed that is because,
knowing
get a little Oprah motivation. Sorry. Oprah's always good. Sorry about that. But what I was going to say is that when I made that video, I thought about my trajectory, not just being a neurodivergent person, but also coming from an environment, because we talked about like how is neurodiversity important within diversity. And so not only did I have a learning difference, but I also came from a community that was quite economically disadvantaged and that has its own, challenges and joys within the struggles. And my mom was just and I bring her up because we're talking about parenting styles, and I owe her everything. And my dad, they were just, oh gosh, amazing. And they created this bubble for me, but also exposed me to the world. And I think that's parenthood. Why River might seem like a bubble, but is also exposing your children to the world and exposing you. And it's a supportive network of people who get it, who care, and who spent their entire lives working towards helping people who identify as neurodivergent find a home and helping us to be exposed to the world. So I say that because, like in the video, for instance, you might have seen some video footage of literally right near the CVS that was bombed when Freddie Gray was arrested, if you guys hear about Baltimore news. And so you might have seen an image of me, my mom, and my daughter going into the library. That library is where I learned how to read. Like my mom would have me there like from 2 and up, and libraries clearly became my love. Getting a PhD was a fun thing for me. And I can understand how, my brain just wants to eat knowledge. It's just like, give me more, give me more. And so like, some people could see that as a curse, but I've always been lucky to see it as a gift, even in the midst of like people walking around, like literally sometimes not in the best, sorry, my lighting is a little off, not being in the best state due to like drug use or just not having the right emotional supports. And I bring this up because it doesn't matter what economic situation you're in, finding the support you need is like the way to finding peace, to creating success. And this is just one area around diversity, and we'll delve more. And I say that because people come to independent schools from different economic backgrounds. And so I don't want one's economic situation to discourage them. Reach out, find out what financial opportunities are there, what scholarships may be available. I'm sure Katie and Stephanie can help you with that and their amazing team. I think it's really important to not limit yourself because you might be blocking great opportunities by accident. So have great expectations for what's possible for you and your child. But we'll get back to how parents are allies. So if we think about parenthood, we want to remember that you are the child's first teacher. You're their ally, your support. Even if you feel like you've had a rocky relationship, they still love you. Even if even if you feel like that's like a small little dot worth of love, I bet you it's more. And I think that you have to give yourself more credit that you've been a rock for them. And sometimes children and teens, they have so many emotions and they're trying to figure out like, how do I balance this? How do I express my true self? Are they going to judge me for this? Even though they know you love them. And so just keep showing up, even if they're yelling at you, even if they're like, I'm just being real, even if they're hitting you. Sometimes physical, like the body feels so much emotion that it doesn't know. It's like the flip side of it is they say laughter is joy that cannot be contained. Sometimes anger is, it can't be contained. And so as we're learning new strategies, right, you might have had this earlier on in your child's life, depending on their situation, but don't, the biggest thing is don't take it personally, whether it's a yell, whether it's a body language of like discouragement, just keep showing up as your best self and recognizing that every time you share a smile, they see it. So parents are allies. Build a collaborative relationship with teens based on trust, consistency, accountability, empathy, care, and respect. So you might get a lot of great results when if you haven't already, and if you shift to the idea that you can have a relationship that feels like being co-pilots. That might be scary because you might be like, well, they're teenagers and my child isn't showing all the way that they're responsible enough for me to be a co-pilot with them, right? Well, that's true, but you'll get what you expect. So if you show them that, and I'm not judging, like I've been through this already with my 6-year-old. And it's like another, one day she's 6, the next day she's 16. So I totally get it. And but I've had great results even on challenging days. And she has not been tested, but she's quite neurodivergent herself. And I love that because as I was writing this article and preparing, I was just like, I'm so ready to talk about this. And it's a beautiful thing because the moment you show them you care, despite their frustration with you or the world, which it really usually is, and you give them more responsibility and give them small bits. Don't go throwing like clean the whole house at them. They might not be ready for that, but like give them small things that they can check the box off. Like, oh, I did that. Like, oh, I watered the plant, or like something they care about. Like see what they actually enjoy doing and have them like create a habit tracker. Like even if it's writing it down to see what kind of things do they like and how can they create habits out of it that shows that they're contributing to the family. Because we're all contributing to systems, whether that's at home, at work, or at school, or in our community. This shows them that you trust them. Enter it with great expectations so that your body, mind, and spirit, or energy, if you want to use that word, respecting all beliefs here, so that your whole energy shows up as your best self. And I will go to Oprah for a second. She talks about being mindful of the energy that you show up with in every room you enter. Here are some ways to do that. So creating conversation norms with your team. Participate authentically. Operate with an open mind or open heart and open mind. Embrace conflict without the need to control it or others. Cultivate honest and respectful discussions based on mutual respect. And the last one, be mindful of personal body language when communicating concerns, which is the hard part because you're like, oh, this wasn't done again, right? Or like, I thought they heard me. We made so much progress. Why are we going backward again? And it can feel like an emotional roller coaster and one where you're losing. This is where it takes you to like really take a deep breath and recognize that human development here, matters. Their brain is still like growing, evolving, and trying to process information, process what do I actually care about? Okay, I want to care about that, but how do I like really care about it? And the moment you stop judging their process and looking for what should they be doing versus what can they do right now, what can they do next? Imagine your growth process. Go back to when you were a teen and then add on being a neurodivergent child. What specific needs do they have based on what you've observed, based on maybe what past teachers have observed? Can you have them have tests to see like where they are, what they might need? And then give yourself small, achievable outcomes, right? I'm gonna have some SMART goals here. All right. Oh, and the last one though, that body language. Try playing out scenarios in the car before you leave work or somewhere, maybe go to a park where nobody will see you. And like, or at home, because at home it can be hard. Like you might not have a lot of privacy and you got to go somewhere where you feel comfortable. Like play these scenarios out in your mind. And what I mean by that is imagine a time where your child, it was a challenging situation. What did you do? How did you respond verbally? What was your body language like? Now replay a time where you actually felt that you did a great job. Compare what the differences were between those two different approaches without judgment, and then make the change. And if you could just hold on for 1 second, I'm going to fix my lighting in the room. I apologize. It was so beautiful with the sunset coming in, but now it's not. I apologize. 1 sec. I'm going to pause my video for just a moment. Okay, it's a little better. And I'm still working from home right now. Please, if my husband's in a meeting, my daughter's in a meeting, I apologize, but it's better lighting. You can see me, and I'm going to get creative as a mom. So no judgment here. And the echo is really good. So I hope you can hear me clearly. Got to do what you got to do. I'm sorry. All right. So it'll add a little humor here. All right. Let's see. I think, and if you want to see my daughter, she made some really cool decorations up here. They're like palm trees. You can see that. Yeah. Have to add some laughter in there. This is real parenthood, right? All right. Let me just make sure. Okay. So, yes. Okay. So think about yourself as an explorer. Ask yourself, what can it mean? And I want to keep taking all these does out. What can it mean to be an explorer? How can you cultivate joy while being on an unknown expedition? If anyone's ever been on a trail, it might, depending on your experience with nature and relationship with nature, it can feel quite nerve-wracking at the beginning. I grew up in Baltimore City, as you know now, and nature was there clearly, but my family wasn't really, we respected nature, but going on a hike wasn't something that was seen as very fun for us. And I bring this up because nature therapy is something that is very helpful for parents and students to do if you have a good relationship. You know your child, but you can do small doses like a park if that's something that would make you find joy. If a trail might be too much at the beginning. There are two benefits here. Well, more than two, but for one, you put yourself in a different environment and you get to connect without any computers, cell phones, unless you're using apps to help you explore the trail. That could be fun. And also you can put yourself in a new environment and really test each other out, like to see like, what do I observe here? It could be a mindful moment of reflection. Also, what I was going to say is to make sure that it's a joyful experience. And this can be joyful on a scientific level because literally being around, there's so many scientific studies done about this. When you're out in nature, you literally are around so much more plant life and trees, and you're getting in so much more oxygen than you would in like a room with no plants, right? Or clearly trees. So on a scientific level, you're reconnecting with the thing that gives you life, oxygen, which is why in meditation, if you've delved in it at all, and this is away from any one religious belief, just a practical use of meditation, you find that focusing on the breath is a way to reconnect to the body, mind, and energy, right? Your consciousness, like what's the thing that's keeping you alive? Well, the breath. And so you can find fun ways to do this, walking meditations, downloading apps that are helpful like Calm or Headspace, or just going on YouTube and typing in stress relief meditation, right? We also have some that we shared the link to in the blog post article that I shared. And there's one we have specifically for moms, but it's for caregivers in general. It was Mother's Day, and I thought it would be a nice tribute to moms to have a meditation for them, but it's really for anyone who is a caretaker. And it helps us to really recenter and focus on what matters, that you're doing a great job, you're doing your best. So having this explorer mindset, this is important because every day will be a new day with your child, as you probably noticed. And the moment you feel like you've mastered like their new learning styles or their social scene or lack of a social scene, then something new comes in and you have to deal with that again. And you shouldn't feel discouraged by this. It took Thomas Edison, and they say 1,001 times to get the light bulb right. Well, if he didn't do that and countless others, I wouldn't see you right now. I'd be still in that dark room right now. And we were just talking like, fireside chat, and that's fine. But our human evolution like is literally happening because he took all that work and all those tries. He probably judged himself here and there, but through evolution and a greater understanding of human consciousness and our subconscious, we can fight away what people call in mindfulness the monkey mind, the unevolved part of us. We have to recognize that we have the ability to, in some ways, put a leash on unhelpful thoughts or to sweep them away into another closet and say, look, that thought's not helpful right now. Look, it might look bad. My teen might be yelling right now, but okay, how do I get what I want? Oh, wait, I focus on what I want. I want to have a peaceful and harmonious relationship. So what data do I have about my child right now? What do I know makes them feel safe? What do I know helps them feel loved? What has calmed them down, even in the most heated storm before? Okay, let's try those, right? Go back to what worked. If that doesn't work, just stay calm in the midst of the storm. That storm might not be a yelling match. It might be like they get home and they're just not speaking, or they get home and they're crying, or they get home and they are talking to you, but it's constantly about being anxious about like their classmates, right? Which is why you're probably here for one of these reasons or others, or just wanting a better environment that is more understanding, like Y River, because your community will get it, right? And teens can find other teens that have been through it, wise teens that have strategies that work, that they've learned from their teachers and peers. So embracing this idea of beginner's mind is that every day is a new beginning. So you have to be an explorer or you'll be stressed out. Explorers know that this is going to be a great adventure called life here, or life is a lab, which is why we named it Bloom Wellness Lab. Because if we see ourselves as explorers or as scientists, we know that we expect that the first experiment might not, like, what is perfection? I was gonna say it might not go perfectly. Well, okay, what is perfection? On one hand, we can have a checklist and say, okay, I want this, and this to go right. And that's good. I mean, like when NASA's launching one of their spacecrafts or rockets, they need the calculations to work, or they have to scrub the mission. So I get it. Like there's a level of like perfection needed for things to run well, but they didn't get that overnight. It took time, and it took the best and most brilliant minds. And even recently, they had a mission they had to scrub, the best in the world, and they still had to scrub the mission. So if NASA has to scrub missions, well, you can too. And when I say scrub, I mean pause the mission from launching and take a pause, evaluate what's going on, see how we can fix it, try our best, and hope that everything works, right? We can think about those days that just felt so great as those days that were launch days. They happen. The perfection, it does happen, but it's because you made it perfection, right? This concept of, and I'm going to keep track of the time. Okay, great. This concept of body battery might be one that's helpful to you. So this is helpful, and I talk about this in the blog post as well. I hope you check it out if it's helpful to you, that the power of perception and energy awareness. So taking a little more stock of your children's or your teens' energy and yours, and at what time of the day your energy is high, and what type of time of day your energy is like, maybe if you were going from like 0 to 100, hopefully it's not 0, because that's not, I don't, it's pretty low, but we might be like that some days. But what I would say is, if it's very low, think about, okay, what helps you to thrive? And I would really start there actually before, this might sound selfish. Don't tell anybody. I'm just joking. But you have to be a little selfish with heart. And what I mean by that, let's reimagine the word selfish. It means being aware of your energy. It means thinking about, what do you love to do? Because when you pour in your cup, you've heard this phrase before, I'm sure, you can actually pour some water out to other people. We all need a little hydration, right? Literally and metaphorically. So if you have no water in your cup, i.e. energy in your battery, right? What are you giving? you're on E and you're probably going to be yelling or like very disengaged, frustrated, all the normal things. Because guess what? We're human too. The great part is we are conscious beings who every day can do better and better without judgment. So you have to ask yourself, let's go to this first bullet point. What is your perception of your life, your energy, desires, needs, and the quality of your interpersonal relationships? Let's think about that. Now, how are you managing it? No judgment. This is a no judgment zone. You have to give yourself that grace. If you don't, this is going to be a lot harder. So remember, when you evaluate yourself, it's not one of like, I'm the worst mom or dad in the world. Why can't I get this right? I keep trying and this isn't working. Or like, this is working. And then when you hit a road bump, you're like, wait, how did I get that wrong? No, beginner's mind. You're learning about yourself too. You're reparenting yourself. You're recreating yourself. Every stage of motherhood or fatherhood or being a guardian, you're rebirthing yourself every day. How you choose to do that? Well, that's the question. So once you really think about how you deal with things, then you can think about, well, how is my team dealing with them? What can I observe at least, right? And if we really think about this is going to take time and it can feel daunting, but just try little bits at a time. I would suggest to map out your day. Do it by hand. Unless the computer comes like completely naturally, it comes naturally for me, but writing it out, there's a power to writing, at least for me. Use the method that works for you. And talk this out too with a friend you trust. Sometimes speaking it out loud is helpful. If you don't have a supportive person in your life like that, that's all right. Turn your phone on, hit the record button, and record yourself on selfie mode so you can actually have a record of it. So you can think about like your day. So from the moment that you go to sleep at night to the next day, map out, what am I using my time on? Okay, what's my energy like during that time? And that's why I would say talking it out and writing at the same time. So you like literally write like 5 a.m. or let's say 5 p.m. the moment I get off of work, 5 p.m. all the way until 5 p.m. the next day. Key things, what was my energy like? What was the task I was working with? What was the interpersonal relationship that I was having? Did it energize me or deplete me? And then think about that with your child. If you have the relationship where you can pose this question to them, you can pose it like a fun activity or game where maybe they receive a reward to like map out their day and their energy type. This could be something that could be fun. I would say make it fun. Don't make it feel like a chore, because life is meant to be gamified. Like we vilify video games so much, and yeah, a lot of them are quite violent. That's true. But the idea behind a positive one, at least, is a good one, because you have like this interesting landscape, this new environment, and you're navigating it, and you pick up little rewards as you go, or little coins or tokens. And then you have like these villains that you have to fight, which usually are our doubts and challenges that come, a flat tire, another bill, pick your choice. And we have to overcome them. Here's where I would say, think about your favorite superhero, whether you like comics or not, whether you like Marvel or not. What would be your superpower if you created your own identity? And think about how you will overcome those challenging situations. You could also frame this with your child or teen around superheroes if they like the idea of that, to see like what superpowers you have to have more mindful moments throughout your day. And I see the time, don't worry, I'll summarize soon. But if we think about identity, we can think about all these different identity standpoints that we can take, like thinking about our heritage, our race, this idea of race, religion, ethnicity, class, age, language, gender, the education we received, our sexuality, the history behind our family story. How do all these intersect, right? And how do we feel marginalized in certain ways? But I would push to go in this conversation of diversity based on these identity categories. How can we accept and embrace the stories we've been told around these identities, but only in the way that works for the life that you want to create? How can you move beyond the stories that are told that are not uplifting, that are not empowering, and recreate the story that you want around what does it mean to be a Black woman or an African-American woman or a Jewish woman, right? Pick your choice, a Latina woman. What can that mean? It's what you say it means. And the more you embrace this, do the inner work around your identity, you then help your child to think through when they receive bias in any way, shape, or form on any of these levels, right? The bias can be implicit, right? If we look at this slide, we can think about implicit bias, referring to the attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understanding, actions, and decisions in an unconscious manner. Now, this is key because we'll see in some parts of the world more unconscious bias, one that wasn't meant. It's couched under a joke, right? Oh, you're slow. Couldn't finish your test today. Or, oh, why do you talk like that? What's wrong with you, right? Some of your children may have heard this in the past. I hope not too much. I hope not at all. But if they have, helping them to say, like, you're reflective, right? You're reflecting on what's going on. You're finding new and amazing ways to process data. And I respect that. I respect your time. This isn't a race. You don't need to be fast. You just need to go at the pace that's yours, right? Finding a way to really flip the script, be the director of your own life, and find ways to show them that, you think about a moment where you've experienced bias as well. Because just telling our kids sometimes like, oh, it's okay, they don't feel like that. They're like, I have a whole class of who knows how many in school, if it's not a one with small class sizes like Y River. So they might feel the pressure of the group, showing them the power of the community if it feels like a loving, caring community. And if it's not, that's not a community. That's a group of people put together who don't have shared interests. And that doesn't mean to judge them. They just probably haven't been around someone who openly and visibly and audibly is thinking differently, or that person hasn't shared. So we don't want to judge the people that don't treat us well either, which sounds hard sometimes, but we want to understand that they don't get it yet. And that's okay. We just don't have to spend our time with them. I'll just give myself 5 more minutes because I want to make sure just the major points are home, and I can have these slides be sent to Katie so that she can email them out so you can review them. Like I said, I have so many ideas, it's hard to bear it down, but I hope they're going to be a great resource for you all. Okay, so I'm going to skip a slide. Well, yeah, I think that's important because here when we think about neurodiversity, we can think about reimagining intelligence and ability. This is key because we put so many labels. I mean, you watch certain shows and they're showing the kid with the glasses and the book, and they're the smart one. If we see about certain character, if we think about character development and cartoons, even in movies or shows, there's a certain way that neurodivergent people are shown, or even people who may not call themselves neurodivergent, they might even know what that term is, right? They just might find they wear glasses and they need a little help to see, and they think about things differently, right? It doesn't matter. The label is yours to create. So that's the first thing I would say. The label, when I first started this work, it was called diversity and inclusion. And then it was diversity, equity, inclusion. And now it's diversity, equity, justice. Diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and belonging. And tomorrow it might be something new. So labels are important because they help us to create community, acknowledge our experiences, but you don't want to get too, I don't want to tell you what you want to do. I'll rephrase that. I would highly suggest, I'm checking myself, but in all seriousness, I would highly suggest that we check the way that we ascribe to labels. Be flexible, see how you can recreate the definition for yourself, because you are the master of your own story. Reimagining what intelligence and ability means is crucial. On one hand, we want policy and legislation to acknowledge that people think differently, because They might need certain supports that others do not have if they're not labeled in a certain way. And sometimes we have to play that policy game. But in your home, I would highly suggest that you understand the helpfulness of categorization for understanding a larger population, right? And working our way to create the country and world that we want. But on the other hand, like if you don't, you have to not have to, I would highly suggest that you explore what the term disability means, what even the term difference means. It means what you say it means. Because if you don't create that like mission statement for yourself, just like why River has a mission statement, you will find yourself falling into the trap of limitations. And what my largest message is for you all today is to find yourself to be limitless within seemingly strong confines. We want to create as much freedom as we can imagine. If you know that your child needs to rev up differently in the beginning of the day through play, as everybody really would like to if they could, help them to find ways to play and make it a game. This might feel stressful. Like, I can't even think about how to have fun on my own, right? You might say that to yourself. Well, that means you got to put that as a goal, and that's okay. Like, oh, look, I said gotta again. See, I'm catching myself. My point is finding a way to play. It's scientifically proven that this allows our brains to relax. It actually helps us to learn more. So you'll be doing yourself a favor on the whole moral arc of justice, the whole evolutionary process for humans to play more. And on this chart, to find out what are your child's gifts, multiple intelligences. Are they more musically inclined, body and kinesthetic? Are they people smart, word smart, right? Nature smart? Get them in these environments so that their gifts, not their disabilities, can shine, right? Disability is like there's a disappearance of the ability. It's gone. Yes. I myself know that I have differences, but that doesn't take away from everything else I can do well, right? And that's the thing that drive home. This one just says that your multi-generational relationship, right? It leads to growth. And here growth means harmony. It means evolution together. The last one I'm gonna say, no, two last ones, and I promise I'm gonna stop. I'm at 7:20. When you prioritize your own wellness, you can help others heal. Here, healing, you have to define what that means. Healing can mean, you've probably heard a lot about healing the inner child. And that's really important because the way we treat our children, no judgment, to ourselves is possibly a mix. And I'm saying possibly because all of us are on different journeys right now, but it's a mix of how we were raised ourselves and what we saw we wanted different for our children and teens. So as your child changes and grows, allow yourself to have goals so that you feel like you're getting things accomplished, but ask yourself, what does accomplishment mean here, right? Eliminate negative self-talk and stress. And this is the last one. So many great things. All right, I'm gonna make this the last one. It's hard. Nope, can't do it. So this is important. Your brain, you need to know that no matter what diagnosis you have or lack of it, it can change. Neuroplasticity, Google it, please, Google it. Neuroplasticity, you know that phrase, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, okay? Not talking about dogs, but dogs can learn new tricks too. But humans, we can learn new tricks. Be a magician. Learn some fun tricks for yourself, for your partner if you have one, for your future magic partner if you want one. If you don't, for yourself, be your own best partner, right? Play more because it'll open your brain up. It'll allow you to release all those stress hormones and allow the part of your brain that can find solutions to literally help you find exactly what you want by focusing on it and being consistent. I'll show you about that later. This is the last one, and I promise. The 4 agreements, you can look it up. This infographic is all you need if you don't have a week to read a book right now. Be impeccable with your word. Now, of course, you're going to make mistakes. Perfection, again, like the article, not the goal. The goal is that you speak with integrity, say only what you mean, and avoid using, like, the word just means like your words. Like, what words are you saying? Do they match what you want? Or are you saying it because you think you're supposed to say it to create peace? Number 2, don't take anything personally. It's going to feel real personal. You probably felt that already. Try to build up a new facade. Well, not facade isn't fake, but like a new mindset, right? Where I recognize, because of my child's human development and their trajectory, and also their learning differences, that they experience the world differently. Expression is different. It may be challenging for certain things, for them to express themselves in certain ways. So how can I recognize human development, diagnoses or lack of diagnosis, what I see of my child, to not take it personally? Even if they meant it personally, you're going to be the guide here by not taking it personally, because you recognize that the only reason they meant it so personally is because they didn't know how to manage their emotions at that time. By you modeling calmness, free practice, non-judgment, and responding to them in a calm way, like, oh, I see that you're frustrated. I totally understand why that would be, but I would love it if we could speak to each other in a more respectful tone, because I really want to hear what you have to say. Now, when you practice this enough and you really mean it, because at first you might not mean it, let's be real, because you might feel attacked. Your body will feel attacked. So when you really mean it, they will feel it. And soon they will do nothing but be able to change, because you are not fueling their fire. Last 2, don't make assumptions. You don't know what they're feeling. It's funny. That's the funny opposite. You can assume based on patterns and data you've gotten, but that's why you want to ask them, even if they don't tell you right away. Hey, I just like, well, not in a sad voice though, because then they're gonna feel like you're pitying them, and you don't want that either. So like, hey, I had a great day, or just start with like, hey, how was your day? Like, what did you do today that was fun? Right? Don't say how was your day really, because that's gonna be like, it was good. And that's not an answer, right? So how was your day? Maybe not that one, but like, what did you do today that was like the most amazing thing you've never seen in your, like, I'm making it up, but you want to ask them a question where they kind of would be highly encouraged to give a exciting answer, or one that is at least they gave an answer, right? Don't expect magic at the beginning if that's not where they are. They'll get there. Last part, number 4, just do your best. That's it. Always do your best. You know what that is. If you really make this life of yours a non-judgment zone, right? A no judgment zone, just do your best. And I promise you, if you really look openly at the big picture, you will get results. It might not feel monumental, but slowly, consistently, small actions have big impact. That's it. You can find these slides. I'll make sure I send them. There's so many other good ones, but I was almost done, but it's okay. Got through those hormones. And here we go. So these are my podcasts. If you feel inclined, like I say this humbly, but also confidently, the guests were just, they were amazing. So many gems. This is all free. You don't have to do anything special, but just download Apple Podcasts or what's the other one? Spotify. You can find them. The newest one is actually with my mom and daughter, called Agility in Bloom, and awesome again about leadership and wellness, and even entrepreneurship and different ways of thinking about the world. If you all want to connect with me, I'm sure you can find it on the article. And also, I definitely would love, I coach parents, entrepreneurs, wellness leaders. Feel free to contact me. We can do a discovery call exclusively for Wide River, and we can just work together to see how I can help. But I love this work, and I'm sorry I went over, but if anyone has any questions, I'll stay on longer. And yeah, feel free to ask any questions. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stephanie, so much. You have just the most soothing, calming presence. And my question is, when are you going to come work with our students?
Oh, I would love to. Although I go all around the country. Well, and I'm going to say world. I haven't worked with students internationally, but have traveled. But yeah, I've been to schools in Connecticut and New York, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. So I'm in Baltimore, of course, in DC. I would love to. I work with parents, students, and teachers and administrators and alums, right? And trustees. So yeah, this is it's I love it. It's an honor and I'm just grateful. So thank you.
All right, just another opportunity for anybody who hasn't written a question. And if you think of something later, you can always reach out to me. You could send a message to the the meetup group, and I'll receive that as well and make sure that Stephanie gets a hold of that and gets you an answer.
Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for taking your time out tonight.
All right. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. It was awesome. Thank you.
All right. Have a fantastic evening, everyone.
Bye.